This is the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live, where we offer the news, information, traffic, weather, sports, and entertainment our commercial drivers want and need. I'm your host, Shelley Johnson. According to Forbes Advisor, people in the transportation industry have the second highest divorce rate. Things like incompatibility, money, and infidelity are three of the biggest reasons they cite for divorce. We wanted to explore this topic further. Hody Spencer is on a mission to cut the divorce rate among men by 10%. He has a website called The Communicator, which he touts as the communication tool that divorce lawyers hate. He's the author of A Man's Guide to Better Relationships. Hody holds a bachelor's in psychology from the University of Washington. He's a relationship and marriage coach. We wanted to learn more, so we invited him on the show. Welcome, Hody. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm curious, how did you get started on your mission to cut the divorce rate? What started all that?
Well, I hate to admit it, but my marriage failed. I had been married for 20 years to a woman who I knew in college. We rekindled our relationship about 15 years after college. I came from a family background where my parents had been married 50 years. And one day my wife told me, "I love you, but I'm not in love with you." And that kind of morphed into what do I do? How do I fix this? How do I save this? But she had pretty much checked out. So we went to marriage counseling. I want to say 5 or 6 sessions of that, and nothing was getting better. And she told me she wants to want to start looking for her own place. And the next thing you know, there's divorce papers and onward and upward for her. So yeah, it really didn't hit me till she actually filed, and it's like, holy cow. So um, I guess I'm on a mission to try to help other men not have to go through what I went through.
Yeah. So it kind of blindsided you.
It did. There had been a little hiccup. I want to say about 8 years before, and I thought it all came down to money. But I've been on a mission, as you say, for about the last 3 years, trying to figure out what happened, what went wrong, where did I mess up,
Hmm.
um, and it really boils down to what I like to call emotional security. And I did not provide it, uh, and not to fault myself, but I didn't know how to provide it. She would always complain that I never listened to her. And at first it was kind of in a joking manner. Oh, you never listen to me. And I'd kind of laugh it off. I thought was laughing it off as well. But every time she said it, it was, I hate to say it, another straw on the camel's back. But, there's an interesting statistic, and I don't know exactly where it comes from, but roughly 75% of all divorces are initiated by women.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and that's why I said a straw that goes on the camel's back. The other thing that I've learned is of the 70%, most of them are thinking about pulling the trigger for a couple of years beforehand. So when they actually get to the point of making up their mind to do it, they've been thinking about it for a couple of years. And if you've been married more than 5 years, I guarantee you they've been thinking about it for more than 2 or 3.
Hmm.
Um, so it's they have all their solutions, actions, reactions. They've rehearsed it over and over and over again. So even though it can seem cold and calculating on their part, they've been thinking about it for a while.
What are some of the biggest reasons women initiate divorce?
It comes down to feeling heard and understood.
Okay.
I think a man has to provide a safe place for her to feel heard and understood. Um, and as men, we like to be heroes. We like to fix things. And it's been argued that men tend to be more logical, women tend to be more emotional. And I was guilty of that. She would present a problem, and I'd go right into fix it mode, and more importantly, invalidation mode. Which, when she would complain that somebody said something or she was feeling a certain way, my first reaction was, "Oh, you shouldn't feel that way," which now I know is complete invalidation of what she's saying. Or she would present a problem to me, and I'd fix it, and I'd think, "Oh, there I am, ta-da! I'm the hero. I just solved her problem." And I was doing everything that I shouldn't have been doing as a man. I should not have been doing. But again, nobody teaches us how to do that, how to provide
No.
emotional security.
And men are taught to be fixers rather than good listeners, perhaps. And I know women are more verbal. That's how they communicate.
Yes, yes. It's again, men talk to men in a very different manner. I liken it to if my friend says, "Hey, the right the steering wheel is pulling to the right and it was shaking and flop 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 and a little bit lower on the right front," and my buddy's going to say, "You got a flat right front tire." Great, and that's how men tend to talk. Where I think a woman's more like, "Oh boy, was it scary? What did you do next? Tell me more." Um, and someone was trying to tell me it can be traced back to the hunter-gatherer days, that women were more in the tribe aspect of working together, and the men were the hunters, and tend to be a little more matter of fact. But that's kind of the basics of it, that men tend to fix, and that's just not the thing we should be doing. I think when presented with a challenge or a problem, a great thing to do is ask. Is like, "Hey, do you want me to listen or do you want my opinion?" And then she
Hmm.
will tell you what she needs.
Yeah, that makes sense. You do that in a work situation, I would think. It's interesting that that doesn't transfer to a relationship.
I haven't found it to it. I think a lot of times we can take each other for granted just so easily that I know men don't like conflict, or most don't, in terms of the relationship. The dreaded words for me were, "We need to talk." It's like, "Uh-oh, what do I do now? And how soon can I get this over with?" But what I've found is women need to communicate, and whether they're, I like to use this analogy of what I've come up with is a man's supposed to be a rock, like a lighthouse, and women can be more water, and water can be placid, or water can be in a hurricane. Um, but it's when the communication stops and indifference sets in that you're in real trouble. So
Hmm.
your wife might be talking calmly, and again, partner, wife, girlfriend, she can be talking calmly, or she can be screaming at the top of her lungs. And what we as men need to do is to say, "Hey, this is good. She's communicating." Um, and again, I mentioned you need to be a safe place for her to express her emotions. And once those emotions are expressed, or what she needs to get off her chest, she's going to feel 10 times better. Um, it's just, if there's something she needs to get out, let her get it out. And oftentimes you, the man, might be the center of her ire, if you will. You might be the reason she's upset. But
Hmm.
when she's venting, when she's communicating, that's really really good. When it gets to indifference and that communication stops, yeah, if you can make her upset, if you can make her mad, that's a good thing. It means communication is still happening. Yeah, you just need to sit back and listen, and not try and fix, and try and understand where she's coming from.
But you need to be an active listener, don't you? Just sitting there like a rock
Absolutely,
isn't helpful.
absolutely. Yep, and you need to not react as a man. And the first thing I like to say in teaching men how to do this is, um, if you're having a conversation and you get a text on your phone and you grab your phone and look, boom, any points you might be earning for that undivided attention, they're gone.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
need to turn off the phone. You need to turn off the game. You need to turn off distractions. Um, and something else that'll go a long ways is, if it's not a good time to talk, you need to acknowledge that the talking needs to happen. You can say, "Hey, honey, this is you got me right in the fourth quarter of the game. There's 5 minutes left. Is this something that can wait for 10 minutes?" Um, or it might even be other stuff going on. You might have a headache, you might be hungry. It just say you need to be able to convey that, hey, this is really important to you. I know it. We need to talk, but can we set aside some time to give this the attention it deserves?
Sure.
That'll buy you some time. It'll help things out quite a bit.
Makes sense. Well, I definitely want to hear more of your insight. I know listeners do too, but we do have to go to break. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson, and I'm talking with Hody Spencer. He has some very interesting insight on how to prevent divorce. So we definitely want to listen to some more of his pointers here. Some great insight. Stay tuned right here on tncradio.live. The Truckers Network helps professional drivers save money and makes their lives easier. We were created for drivers by a commercial driver. We know the industry and driver needs. A Truckers Network membership offers exclusive discounts through our trusted partners on things like truck care, truck parking, tires, oil changes, fuel additives, fitness, roadside assistance, first aid kits, driver training, and a whole lot more. Start saving today. Check us out at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. That's app.thetruckersnetwork.net. The trucking industry keeps America running thanks to the 3.36 million professional truck drivers who deliver everyday goods to 80% of American communities who rely on trucking for that last mile. The industry represents a diverse group with nearly half of drivers at 42% as minorities. Trucking Moves America Forward, or TNAF, educates the public on the essentiality of trucking by telling the story of trucking and its positive impact on our economy, communities, and lives. Learn how you can join the industry movement by visiting truckingmovesamerica.com. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson, and I'm talking with Hody Spencer. He's the founder of the website The Communicator. He's the author of A Man's Guide to Better Relationships. His goal is to cut the divorce rate, and he's got some great insight. In our last segment, we were talking about some of the reasons that divorce happens, and that women are often the ones who initiate it. Hody, it's interesting. I've read in a number of places that divorce has gone up since the pandemic.
Yes, most definitely. I think a lot of that, and unfortunately, I know some people that are getting divorced, unfortunately, but just being locked in with each other for the past 2 years, and they find out maybe they don't like each other quite as much as they used to.
Which is interesting. Did they even know each other to begin with?
Shelley, that's an interesting question. There's the chemical science of attraction, the dopamine, the oxytocin, other such things that give you that euphoric feeling of being in love. And they say it lasts anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. Sometimes I think people, it's when all that's happening, it's very easy to ignore red flags. You might not notice that he leaves the toilet seat up, or it might not be a big thing for the first 6 months, but a year into it, when some of the chemicals are starting to pull back, you might say, what the heck, how did I not notice that he did this, or notice other things about her? But that's just part of it. There are other people that have been married for 20 years, and the pandemic hit, and there's so many variables that can go into it, especially with children, that you hear a lot of times of people that they stay together for the kids, and when the kids get to high school age, they all of a sudden, or when they fly the coop, when the kids are gone, they look at each other, it's like, who are you? So I think a super important thing to keep watering the grass, to keep courting, to keep knowing that, hey, this is my partner, this is my teammate, and we loved each other at one point, and we can keep doing that. Marriage is a lot of work. It's much easier to be single. And if you can keep courting your spouse, keep working together, there's going to be ups and downs, but for the most part, when it's good, it's fantastic. And there are things you can do to keep it good.
So do people just get lazy?
I think that's part of it. I think too that for men, marriage is I'm struggling for the word, but marriage is an accomplishment that you go through the whole courtship process, the engagement, boom, you get married. That's it. I'm married. Now I can go back and focus on my mission. And I think that's where a lot of men lose. They lose it, and that's when things start to unravel. The
Mhm.
courtship stops. They think maybe old-fashioned wise that the woman's going to take care of the home and be the emotional part of the relationship, and your job is to go be the provider, put food on the table, be the protector of the family. Um, but at the end of the day, you pursued your wife, if you will. You courted her. You guys, you bought flowers. You took her out to dinner. You went on trips. You went on walks. You held hands. You did things that lovers do, and you need to keep doing that. You can't just stop doing that and expect the relationship to stay strong, stay solid. Communication is super important, but it's work. You need to keep the courtship going. I think I use the term marriage is a verb, and it takes work, it takes effort, and
I like that.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that people lose sight of what they need to do. They lose their focus, perhaps.
absolutely. There's another two schools of thought, and pardon me for forgetting who the author is, but it's the five love languages. And I believe they are words of affirmation, acts of service, gifts, quality time, and physical affection. Um, and everybody has their one of which is going to rise to the top and be more important. And I can tell you right now, mine is words of affirmation. And maybe it's because I was starved of it for 20 years. I'm dating a gal now, and hers is quality time. And for others, it's gifts. For others, it's the physical. When we start courting, we're very good at covering all the points. Um, but after time, we start going back into what is best for us. So again, for me, words of affirmation, I can tell her, hey, you did this great, you knocked that out of the park, you're doing awesome. Um, but the fact, if I don't spend quality time with her, she doesn't feel loved. And if she doesn't tell me, if she's spending all kinds of time with me but she's not giving me words of affirmation, then I don't feel loved. um, so it's a great book, a great thing for people to discover about their partner. Um, and I can't remember where I read it, but it was talking about a little birthday party for some kids, and this little boy was going to a birthday party for a girl from his school, and he got her a GI Joe, and the GI Joe was the coolest thing in the world to him. And so obviously he expected her to think it's the coolest thing in the world, and she hated it because she liked Barbie. And
Mhm.
so you need to learn about your partner, learn that, hey, even though I like GI Joe, she likes Barbie. So
Right?
it's not about me. It's what am I going to do for her? Um, and then to take it a step further, when we first start courting people, I'm going to use the a couple senses. You've got the visual, the kinesthetic, and the auditory. So the visual is you see, the kinesthetic is touch, and the auditory is you hear.
Mhm.
When you first start dating someone, you're pretty good about doing all of them. But if I need physical touch and my girlfriend sends me cards telling me how in love with me she is, but I don't get the feeling, the physical touch, I'm not going to feel that she loves me. And by the same token, if I uh, just give her physical touch and tell her I love her, and she's a visual person, I don't give her anything to show her, she's not going to feel loved. So it again, marriage is work. You need to
Mhm.
learn what's important to your partner, uh, and hopefully be able to provide that to them.
With all the electronic devices, everybody's on their smartphone or they're playing video games. That's so distracting. Does that take away from learning all those things and staying in tune?
Yes and no. I love the being able to learn, like books on tape. Audible, I think, is a fantastic app. I happen to have to listen to it on 1.5 times speed just because I'll lose attention. But with video games and all the other things, yeah, it absolutely takes away. So
from the
again,
relationship.
yeah, but
Hmm.
getting back to the relationship being work, it's setting aside time to,
Mm.
the grass is greener where you water it, and
Yeah, it's true.
where's your attention going?
Well, just
Um,
just looking at people in public, you go to a restaurant, you'll see an entire family, and they're not talking to each other. They're on their smartphones.
exactly, it's ridiculous. Yeah,
Hmm.
even seeing people out on dates and they're both looking at their phones. Like, come on, guys. So,
Yeah, yeah,
I think there needs to be time for that as everybody does it, but there also needs to be time to focus on the relationship. How are we doing? I think quarterly tune-ups are another great thing for a relationship. How are we doing? What's good about what us? Where do we need to work? How can I be a better husband? Um, it just relationship relationship checkups are a great thing to do.
interesting. Well, I would imagine that's on both sides. The guy
Absolutely.
can say, "Look, this is what I need, and this is how I see we're doing as well."
Absolutely. Communication is key.
Hmm.
It's just and you can't be afraid of someone else's reaction. I find that when things are not talked about, that they will fester,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
something that can be a little something if you don't address it. What's the expression? A stitch in time saves nine, or an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Hmm.
Um, so that's why I'm trying to teach men how to provide this emotional security, how to be a safe place. And I find that no one does it. My wife's constant refrain, I think I said earlier, is "You never listen to me." When I didn't know what listening meant, uh, I thought, "Oh, I hear you just fine," and I went back to my old communications uh, definition that it's not communication until it's heard and acknowledged. And it couldn't
Yeah.
have been further. That's not what she wanted. She wanted emotional security. She wanted a safe place. Um, yeah, I have an analogy of, think of your woman or your wife coming home with a grocery bag and it's got 10 pieces of junk in there. Okay. And whether just, little 1 pound things, and one by one, she needs to pull them out, and you need to be a safe place where she can hand them to you. And by being a safe place, I mean, no reactions, no opinions, just try and put yourself in her shoes and understand, and whether you think it's stupid or not. Um, it's not about you. If something is bothering her, it's real to her. And let her get it off the chest. And one by one, she hands these things to you and you put them in your bag. And
Sure.
you don't have to keep it. You can take it and throw it away. You just need to be a place for her to offload, to decompress, if you will, get everything off her chest.
Hmm.
And just watch how instantly she turns, it just brightens up. Oh my goodness, I feel so much better. Thank you. And it's a learned process. No one out there is that I'm aware of is teaching men how to do this.
Right.
Um, yeah, just you have to be a safe spot.
It is interesting, and I think a lot of men just kind of have the attitude of like, "Oh, please, really? You're griping again."
Exactly.
They don't use
Exactly.
the word venting always either, and the woman ends up on the phone with her girlfriend or talking, like you said, to maybe another guy, which is real bad because that other guy could end up stepping in on your action.
Exactly. And
Mhm,
here's the bottom line. If something is on your chest, on your mind, you need to get it off your chest, right?
mhm, yeah,
And ideally, you're going to turn to me, your spouse, and I'm going to be a safe place, and you're going to share it with me.
right,
Um, if I can't provide that, like you say, she's going to call a girlfriend or someone at work who's. I'll tell you this: you found your spouse attractive, and hopefully, you still find them attractive.
mhm,
And I guarantee you that others are going to find your spouse attractive as well. So if you can't provide that safe place for her to vent, to get something off her chest, she's going to get it off her chest, and hopefully is not going to find another man to feel like she's having listened to her.
right,
It's how emotional affairs start, and that's typically how other affairs start.
sure,
Um, if you can't provide a safe place, she still needs to vent. She needs to feel heard and understood. Um,
yep.
making her feel heard and understood, I like to say, is the keys to the castle. If you can make your spouse feel heard and understood, boom, Brad Pitt can't poach her.
I
It,
like I like that.
okay, if she does not feel heard and understood, um, Poindexter will end up stealing your wife. I hate to say it like that, but um, and then when I say a safe place,
Hmm.
okay, uh, that means you can't react. And looking back at my relationship, we would get in arguments, um, and my wife would, at the time, 2008 was one of them. But long story short, she had a business failure, and money came into it. And whenever she brought up money, I found myself reacting. And why am I getting so upset about this? Well, all of a sudden, my reaction made it so I wasn't a safe place for her to vent, um, just because I would react. So as part of that, if you're reacting, if you find yourself reacting to something she's saying, I hate to say this, but it's your insecurity. So try and make a note of why you're reacting to something.
Hmm.
Try and put yourself in that position again, and dive in and say, "Hey, why am I insecure about this? Why is she able to push my buttons?" And the goal being that she can't push your buttons. That you're a team. You're in this together. She's not trying to upset you, but in order for it to be a safe place, you cannot react when those buttons start to get pushed. So that's another point that we talk about,
Okay.
is being a safe place for her.
Makes total sense. We do have to go to break here, Hody. I'm looking forward to some more of your insight here. I'm talking with Hody Spencer. He's the founder of the website The Communicator, and he's also the author of A Man's Guide to Better Relationships. His goal is to cut the divorce rate, and he's got some great techniques and insights. So stay tuned for more information right here on tncradio.live. TNCRadio.live is proud to carry the Steve Summers Overnight Drive Show. TNCRadio.live is dedicated to commercial drivers. We offer the news, traffic, and weather you need, and the entertainment, sports, talk, music, and celebrity interviews you want to hear 24/7. We have original shows and trucker podcasts that feature some of your favorites, like Ice Road Alex Debogorski and America's Truckin' Sweetheart Marcia Campbell. TNCRadio.live is convenient and designed for professional drivers. The best part is we're free, and you can listen anywhere you are on the road. With just one tap, you can tune into Steve Summers and us right on your phone. Simply download our app by going to app.tncradio.live. That's app.tncradio.live. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson, and I'm talking with Hody Spencer. He's the founder of the website thecommunicator.net. He's also the author of A Man's Guide to Better Relationships. Hody, you've got some really terrific insight, and I think you're giving some real valid tips for men. Now, you probably have some guys that are saying, hey, it isn't always our fault. We need some things too. How do you address that?
Absolutely right. And by all means, we do have needs that need to be met. I'm really focused on my personal experience of, um, my shortcomings now, and I didn't realize my shortcomings in the relationship, of things that she needed that I didn't provide. But yeah, men absolutely need things, from women. I have found that when I'm doing my part, giving them what they need, I tend to get what I need. And a lot of what's in my book can be used for dating as well. In just the post-divorce, dating world, a number of women said, "Hey, that's the best date I've ever been on." I'm like, "Holy cow!" And it just, yeah, it comes down to listening. Really, that's part of the name, the communicator, is the ability to be present and listen. But yes, you're absolutely right. Men have needs. and ideally your needs are met just as well as you meet hers. But I find that the focus of what I'm looking at is being present, being a safe place for her, and I find I get my needs met in return for that.
I found it interesting. You said a lot of guys go into marriage saying to themselves, okay, mission accomplished. What is, they kind of look at marriage as a touchdown. Well, made the touchdown. Now move on. I mean,
Exactly. I think it's in my generation that was, the man was supposed to be the breadwinner,
mhm,
and boom, now I'm married. Now I can go focus on my career and providing for the family and retirement and vacations and other such things. And things have changed quite a bit now with women's ability to earn, and in often cases, women earn just as much, if not more, than men.
mhm.
Uh, but it's still, I think we view it as an accomplishment and don't realize how much work it's going to be. And hopefully you don't look at it as work. Hopefully it's just what you do, the interaction that you have with each other.
Maybe people need to look at marriage and relationships as a garden that you have to continue to cultivate so it can grow.
Absolutely. And it's something that you spend a lot of time, effort, and money in the courtship process. And again, marriage is a verb. You need to keep doing that
Hmm.
if you expect things to flourish, if you expect it to keep moving along in a positive direction. And you like to think you don't necessarily have to have your foot on the gas the entire time, but you can't ignore it. You need to keep you need to keep focused on the relationship. How can I be better? And
Sure.
same thing goes too for from a health standpoint. How many of us 10 years after getting married are 15, 20 pounds heavier than we were when we got married. Uh, out of shape, just abusing alcohol or other such things. We tend to let ourselves go. And,
Yeah.
you just need to focus on being your best. And ideally, stay in shape. Be a partner that your spouse is proud to have as a partner. Um, I think it becomes, our society has gotten too easy to let ourselves go and just take things for granted and roll along. And again, that's why marriage it's work. It takes effort.
I think people fall into vices like overeating and maybe drinking and that sort of thing because they're unhappy.
Uh, absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
And I think I just read a great book called Younger Next Year, so that it's kind of a little bit of a health kick that I'm trying to be on. But yeah, I think it's just maybe instead of turning to food or alcohol as a outlet for the woes me, um, maybe think about lifting a weight or two or going for a walk and just clearing things out. There are other options than focusing on vices, if you will.
Sure. I can see where couples can lose sight of their relationship too. Once you have kids, they become the center of attention. They're very distracting. It's easy to lose your way. And a lot of couples don't necessarily take the time to have maybe a date.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And you see it time and again of where the kids get out of school and they're like, "Well, who are you? I don't remember who you are." So, and I don't recall if we talked about yet having a quarterly State of the Union. How's the relationship doing? How am I as your husband? Where can I improve? Um, and I'm sure some guys are like, yeah, whatever, don't be so feminine about it. But it's something that needs to happen. How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better man?
Sure.
And you can always be better. You can always earn a little more money. You can always lose a couple pounds. You can always be in better shape. You can always get better manners. You can always get a better haircut. You can dress better. Um, there's a wonderful podcasts that I've listened to a few times, and recently the author said you are where you are today because of decisions that you have made or how you have reacted to things that have happened to you. No excuses. You are where you are today because of decisions you have made.
Yeah.
Um, so we can start making better decisions tomorrow or having better reactions to situations we've been put in. We can dictate where we're going to go. And same thing getting into relationships. If you're out on the dance floor and I'm leading you, you have to react to how I'm leading you. And the same thing can be said for in a relationship with somebody, that maybe your wife has been thinking about getting a divorce for a couple of years. um, if you go out and start improving yourself, she has to react to that. If all of a sudden uh, you're in better shape, she has to react. If all of a sudden you ask her, hey honey, how's your day, and you shut up and just listen, at first she's probably going to think, okay, what are you up to now? Are you trying to manipulate?
Yeah.
um,
What do you want me to do? That type of thing.
Yeah, and it's and it'll take time. If she's been checking out for a while, it's going to take time to get her to check back in.
Hmm.
But I know a lot of people are like, well, how do I do this? And it's simple. Ask her how her day is, and then be quiet and and listen to what she says. And in listening to what she says, let that create another question. Oh, tell me more about that. And then learn how to listen with empathy. And by empathy is like, wow, put yourself in their shoes. And it's like, wow, I'd be upset if I heard that too. And again, there's alpha and beta, right? And I'm not saying we need to be more beta, but just learn to listen, put yourself in their shoes, and let the answer to the question, listen to it, and let that create another question. Just watch where the conversation goes. Don't have an agenda. Be present for your spouse to get whatever's on their mind or off their chest. Just let them talk and listen.
We have about 2 minutes before we go to break. What have you heard from couples as to some of the big breaking points, the last straw? What are some of the things that really disrupt the relationships?
Uh, I think they just get to their end of their rope.
Hmm.
That, and we talked earlier of, as long as they're communicating, you're good. But I think they just tend to check out, and they've been putting up with it for years. Nothing's changed, nothing's improving. If anything else is getting worse. I think in some cases it can come down to financial. If you're overspending or she's overspending and there's not enough check left at the end of the month. And I think a lot of people, divorces become so easy. We see it on TV all the time, and friends have got it done, and they think it's going to be a better life, where they consider you to be the problem and they want to get away from you in hopes of a fresh start, or the grass is greener.
The grass is always greener around the septic tank. Is what was what?
Yes.
I'm
Yep.
trying to remember the gal that said that. She always had some interesting insights on things.
Yeah. Well, and I pose that the
Yeah.
grass is greener where you water it. So
Hmm.
it's
You're right, right. And people have these images of when they're not happy, they start longing for something that looks so much better. And of course, with social media, things can look so much better because everybody posts all these pretty pictures,
yes.
you know.
And it's tempting. I think you need to go back to what you had.
Yep.
It's in that whole courtship process. In the first couple of years of a relationship, it's fantastic, and
Hmm.
hopefully, you can go get through it enough to get past the chemicals and realize, this is my best friend. I'm in love with this person, and
Yeah,
this is who I want to go on the adventure the rest of my life with.
sure. I remember who came up with the grass is always greener around the septic tank. It was Irma Bombeck.
Ah,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
haven't heard that name in quite some time.
Yeah. My mother was into her, so that's why I remember it. But it's a matter of cultivating things. That makes total sense. We do need to go to break here, Hody. I'm talking with Hody Spencer. He's the founder of the website, thecommunicator.net. He's also the author of A Man's Guide to Better Relationships. Stay tuned for more great insight coming up. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show here on TNCradio.live. Stay tuned. The Truckers Network helps professional drivers save money and makes their lives easier. We were created for drivers by a commercial driver. We know the industry and driver needs. A Truckers Network membership offers exclusive discounts through our trusted partners on things like truck care, truck parking, tires, oil changes, fuel additives, fitness, roadside assistance, first aid kits, driver training, and a whole lot more. Start saving today. Check us out at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. That's app.thetruckersnetwork.net. Welcome back to the Truckers Network Radio Show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson, and I'm talking with Hody Spencer. He's the founder of the website, thecommunicator.net. He's also the author of A Man's Guide to Better Relationships. Hody, we've had a great conversation here in our previous segments. I was wondering if you had some pointers on the best way to keep from getting divorced for our drivers who are out on the road all the time. They've got some different challenges there.
Yeah, just I think one is usually I'd say close your eyes, but please, guys, don't close your eyes. But
Right.
just reflect back to what you loved about your partner, about your wife, about your spouse or girlfriend. And there are some really, really happy times there. I guarantee it. And put yourself back in that state. And even though you're not home, you can still provide that safe place. And you need to reach out. Random texts to say, I love you, or I'm thinking about you, or I love the app Bitmoji where you can send the flowers and just what a great thing. Maybe your wife's having a tough day and boom, there's a text from you saying I love you or thinking about you. Just and then you can still have the communication over the phone. And I understand with kids and our busy world how challenging it can be, but set a time to talk, set aside some time to talk at night. And the main thing is listen with no reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Try and be empathetic. If she's having a tough day, just, you can say, hey, I'd be having a tough time with that as well. Don't try and fix things. Never, ever, ever say you shouldn't feel that way.
Sure.
Just I'd feel that way too. It goes a long way towards establishing or reestablishing the connection that you guys had. Is just be present and listen, and ask questions of her based upon what she's saying. Try and get into her day, let her get whatever's on her chest, on her mind off, and be a safe place.
Makes sense. Where do people reach out to you? Can they actually get counseling from you?
Yeah, they can, through my website, admin at thecommunicator.net. That's ADMIN at thecommunicator.net. You can send me an email through there. Be happy to answer questions if anyone has them, or give some advice. But at the end of the day, you guys loved each other when you got together, and you believed in each other, and try and get back to that point. And don't be reactive.
Can people buy your book on your website?
They can. I've got two things on my website. One is a communication tool. It looks just like a 2x4,
Mm-hmm.
and it has etched into it, we need to talk, and do you hear me now? And that's when my wife would complain about me never listening. I thought she really meant that I wasn't physically hearing her. So that's kind of a little bit of a joke gift, but I always thought if things are serious, bring this out, and it's kind of a reminder that I need to listen to you. But there is a digital download on the website. And my book's only 30 pages. It's not something that's going to take a week to read.
Mm-hmm.
You can read it in one or two sittings, and I guarantee you're going to take away something, whether it's hopefully applied to your relationship, but it can be with a relationship with a child or an employer or an employee. But it's really geared to your relationship with your spouse. It's very redundant. You'll hear over and over and over again to be a safe place for her to express herself.
Redundancy is something good so people remember. Absolutely. So your website again is thecommunicator.net, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Excellent. I'm thoroughly enjoying and have enjoyed talking with you, Hody. You've got some very great perspectives. I think it's very helpful for our listeners to remind themselves. And like you said, remember, what attracted you to that person to begin with, and try to keep it kindled, if you will, or rekindle it.
Exactly, rekindle it, throw some gas on the fire, and the mission here is to cut the divorce rate by 10%, and
Hmm.
I so hope you all will join me and be part of that.
That sounds terrific.
Go in the right direction.
Thank you so much, Hody. You've
All
been
right.
listening to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. Stay tuned for more great entertainment and our primetime lineup coming up right here on tncradio.live. Thank you for listening to another great interview on tncradio.live and the Truckers Network radio show. All of the material you hear on tncradio.live on our website, our broadcasts, or our podcasts are copyrighted. There can be no distribution without the express consent of tncradio.live and its partners. For inquiries, write us at info@tncradio.live. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast of the Truckers Network radio show.